Well, that thing stunk to high heaven. Let's talk about all the different things that went wrong and then all the different things that went wrong again for this one on a awful Sunday for the Houston Texans. No good in Minnesota. They get massacred by the Vikings in just awful fashion, basically from the jump. 34-7 is the final score, and this one, it was brutal to watch. The Texans lacking the resiliency that they've showed a couple of times in the D'Amico Ryans era. There was no bouncing back from the mistakes, just constantly building on top of each other and ending up as a disastrous result for the first loss of the season for the Houston Texans. Welcome into the channel. I'm Cody Stoots. Let's talk some Texans. Get your comments in. We'll get to as many of your comments as we can. Super chats go to the front of the line. Throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And let's get into what went wrong with this Texans team. It was a weird feeling as this thing got going because the Texans began this game and they got started taking the ball, and very first play, just the very first play, a beautiful pass to Nico Collins just gets absolutely wiped out, just gets totally wiped out on this one. And you watch the play back, and Cade Stover has to basically tackle Jonathan Grenard to keep him from killing CJ Stroud in the pocket. And the very next play, you get intercepted on just a tipped pass, a bad play. It just did not go well for the Houston Texans to get things started. But okay, defense, maybe they'll hold, maybe they'll get you to a situation here where the Vikings have got to kick the football. But on 3rd and 7, the Texans play off coverage on Justin Jefferson, excuse me, and they play off coverage on Justin Jefferson. And he goes 8 yards and gets the first down. The next thing you know, Eric Murray's trying to defend him in the end zone, and you find yourself with a touchdown to the Vikings. And from that moment on, I was like, I don't love the feel, the vibe of this game here for the Texans. This could be a really, really long day for the Houston Texans. And sure enough, it ultimately turned into that. Why was it such a long day? Well, the offensive line failed you. The offensive line failed you today. It was not good enough from a run blocking standpoint. It was not good enough from a pass blocking standpoint. The offensive line that demolished the Indianapolis Colts in week 1, it feels like they're a million miles away from that team. The offensive line that at times last year held up in pass protection feels like they're a million miles away from that team as well. Now, look, this Vikings team, but they came in and played. This Vikings team has came into this week with the most sacks in football. They're a good pressure team. They can put some heat on you. But the Texans aren't supposed to have issues pass blocking. The Texans aren't supposed to have issues stopping guys from getting to CJ Stroud. You got one of the most expensive left tackles in football, one of the most expensive players in football, one of the most expensive right tackles in football. Shaq Mason's on another contract, and it's a 1st and 2nd round pick at left guard and center. And it's not supposed to look like this. The offensive line failed this Texans team against Minnesota. They failed in the pass blocking, and the run blocking wasn't there as well. And as E.C. Smith says on the Super Chat, the O-line has regressed since week 1, or they haven't shown any improvement, which is concerning. Now, you're right about this. They've regressed from a rushing standpoint, and they haven't gotten better from a pass blocking standpoint. Maybe they even got worse from a pass blocking standpoint. It was a poor performance by the offensive line, and that's really what kind of led to everything not working on offense. Because the defense, yes, short field, don't love the way they covered Justin Jefferson. They allow the touchdown. Then Minnesota gets the ball back after the Texans can't do anything with it, and then they score another touchdown. It's 14-0. The defense has given up 2 touchdowns. It's like it's going to be one of those days for the defense. Well, no, they kind of sacked up and took that thing into halftime, not allowing any more Minnesota progression on offense. 77 yards of offense on the first 2 drives with 2 touchdowns. Then it was 50-something yards of offense by Minnesota on the next 3, and they forced 3 punts. But the offense got nothing going. because the offensive line couldn't pass block, the offensive line couldn't run block, and then constantly mistakes, penalties, Bobby Slowick trying to block Jonathan Grenard with Cade Stover one-on-one. It just, everything sort of started to build up on itself, and things just got away from this Texans team. They never were able to really put anything together offensively, and that's something we've seen actually through the first 3 weeks when it comes to this passing attack. It is not as smooth and seamless and excellent as we all believed that it was going to be coming into this season. They have not had consistency and made it look easy from an offensive standpoint against three defenses that, Minnesota looks like they're pretty darn good, but you should have been able to pass the ball against the Indianapolis Colts better than you did. You should have been able to pass the ball against the Chicago Bears better than you did. And you should be able to utilize those three really good wide receivers, but the Texans can't get anything going. They haven't been able to attack consistently through the air. And a large part of that is the offensive line. Opposing teams don't respect the rushing attack as well. And then you make mistakes that put you behind the chains, and it's hard to come back from that. Let's talk about some of those mistakes. Let's talk about Laremy Tunsil. Laremy Tunsil came into this game with 4 penalties. Laremy Tunsil then had a false start. He then had an illegal formation, which wiped away a play. Then he had another false start. Then he had an illegal formation that was declined. Then he had an illegal formation that wiped away another successful play, and then he had a false start. So coming into this game, he had 4 penalties. He then went on to commit 6 more penalties. He has 9 accepted penalties on the season out of the 10 that he has committed. That is not good enough. And then after the game, at the podium, D'Amico Ryans goes to the podium, and when he's asked about pre-snap penalties, he says, we have to take ownership of it. First and foremost, have to take ownership of it, and we all have to man up and be man enough to just do what we're supposed to do, be where we're supposed to be, and play smart, clean football. So that's what D'Amico Ryans says at the podium after the game. And then in the locker room, after Ryans said that, Laremy Tunsil, and this is Aaron Wilson's tweet, Laremy Tunsil, quote, false starts. I want people to understand we all have to be on the same communication. I'll take the accountability because they're calling my name, but it takes all of us. So the coach says, hey, first and foremost, have to take ownership of it. And then the left tackle says, yeah, they called my name, so I'll take ownership of the false starts, but it's not really all my fault. And then he went on, Aaron Wilson again with the tweet, he went on to talk about the illegal formations, and he said that, he was lining up fine there in the first 2 weeks, but that the league targeted him and the Texans and wanted to make an example out of them. So it's not all his fault on the false starts, and it's the league's fault on the illegal formations. After the head coach says, hey, we got to take accountability for what we do. We got to be the people that say, hey, we got to be better. I mean, the disconnect is wild. The disconnect is wild. And look, I knew this was going to be what Laremy Tunsil says. And if I wanted to go through and parse every single false start, I could probably find a reason or a way to not credit him with all of them. But my goodness, for the head coach to say, hey, we got to take accountability of it, it doesn't take, you would feel so much better about the situation if Laremy Tunsil just said, it's my fault, I have to be better. I need to time it out better. I need to get with the offensive line and make sure I'm on the same page as everybody. If you're on a different page, dude, you're the guy that wants to be the all-pro. You're the guy that wants to be the highest paid left tackle in football. Go out there and make sure everybody's on the same page. Get those other 4 guys on the same page. I mean, Titus Howard got drafted a few years ago. Kenyon Green's in his 3rd year. Juice Scruggs in his 2nd year. Shaq Mason's in his 2nd year with this team. If nobody's on the same page, it's on you. You're the captain of the offensive line. You're the left tackle. You're the highest paid player on the team. Go in there and make sure everybody's on the same page. If it's not going to be, hey, it's my fault, I'll do better. Like if it is indeed the rest of the offensive line, I'll make sure that we'll do better. It's not the league. Look, the league says, hey, you can't line up there, or the illegal formation. Hey, one, I'll give you. Oh man, I lined up there for no problems for 2 weeks, but to have it happen again when there was a little bit of juice, a little bit of momentum to the team. I mean, come on. You can't have that from the guy that's the most expensive player on the team, the guy that's one of the most expensive left tackles in all of football, one of the most expensive players in all of football. You can't have that. And I don't want to let the offensive line be the only thing that we're talking about and that we're critical of here in this matchup. The pass rush wasn't good enough. The best pass rusher on the field in this game was Jonathan Grenard. And Grenard was out there winning one-on-ones. Grenard was out there darting past and through this Texans offensive line and getting after C.J. Stroud. He had Cade Stover hold him early on. Which then the Texans went to then the Texans threw the interception after the holding penalty. He blew through Cade Stover for a sack. He blew past Shaq Mason. Like, Jonathan Grenard is not supposed to be the best pass rusher on the field that includes Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, but he was. And you can live with him having a big day if your guys are also having a big day. But they end up with 4 sacks. They don't hit the quarterback that much. 2 of those sacks came on one drive. One of those sacks actually ended up as a positive play because Derek Barnett knocked the ball away. The ball flies into a Vikings player's hand, and they turned it into a positive play. The pass rush, the heat that they were supposed to put on Sam Darnold, who has some of the most time to throw in football coming into this matchup, the heat wasn't there. They weren't able to apply the pressure to Sam Darnold in this matchup, and that led to Darnold getting comfortable. That led to him being able to hit Justin Jefferson on a 9-yard out when they need 8 yards, on a 7-yard out when they need 6 yards. It let him hit Jalen Naylor down the sideline over the middle. Like, you got to be able to heat up a guy like Sam Darnold. You saw it a couple of times in the game when he gets a little bit of messiness around him. He's throwing the ball in the dirt. He's throwing the ball at guys' feet, but they couldn't consistently get to him. And so you had this situation and you had this moment where Darnold got comfortable and was able to operate this offense. And yeah, they were able to force a couple of punts here and there, but coming out of halftime, all right, they march down the field, they get the touchdown. Now, the pass interference call to set them up there on that drive, that's one of the softest pass interference calls that we'll see all season long. Petrie had his hands on the guy, but he wasn't grabbing or tugging. He wasn't pushing or shoving. He had his hands on the guy, but that's one of the softest pass interference calls of all time. But they come out, Jalen Naylor gets you a couple of different times. Ultimately, the pass interference sets it up, and they score a touchdown. But you're supposed to have some more gumption to your situation coming out of halftime. You're supposed to have a little bit more juice to the equation coming out of halftime. The Texans didn't. It was 21-0 before you even knew it. And then they're playing catch up the whole time through. Lucid Illusions got a super chat. Get to his comment. I seen this coming. Barely beat a bad Colts team. Barely beat a bad Chicago team. Does bad against good teams. I feel like this could be the case all year if they don't clean up their game. Yeah, look, you're right. There were a lot of teams that could have beat the Houston Texans today. You're giving teams opportunities to put you into 3rd and long. You're not pass protecting well. You can't run the football. It was just absolute non-starter on the ground. Cam Akers had 1 rush of 9 yards, and then he had 12 yards on the 8 other carries that he had in this game. Total non-starter on the ground because you didn't have Joe Mixon and the offensive line wasn't run blocking. A lot of teams would have beat the Texans. It might not have been 34-7 that they would have beat the Texans, but a lot of teams would have beat the Texans today with how poorly they played overall. It's not like you went toe-to-toe and Minnesota had a little bit more and you made one mistake. You constantly made mistakes that any team would have beat the Houston Texans today. So, Lucid Illusions, you're right. If they don't clean up a lot of these mistakes, they're going to be in a bunch of dog fights. They're going to be in a bunch of close games. and things aren't going to go their way in those close games, in those dogfights, in large part because if they continue to make enough mistakes, you let bad teams hang around, you let good teams take advantage of you like Minnesota did today. Appreciate the super chat, Lucid. If you've got a super chat, you're going to go to the front of the line. So you just absolutely get demolished in the trenches, and that kind of sets up everything else that just goes wrong for your team. You can't cover when you can't pass rush. You can't throw the ball well when you can't run the ball well or protect the quarterback. It just did not look good for the Texans and the offensive line, and then everything else just kind of stunk from there. Ultimately, the better coached and better prepared team won this matchup. Brian Flores, it felt like he had answers for everything that Bobby Slowick was throwing at him. It felt like whatever the Texans were about to try, there was a Grenard blitz or Van Ginkel or one of these other guys, Camus Grugier Hill. Like, it felt like there was something for everything that the Texans tried to get going on offense. Brian Flores, he's getting the reputation of the Shanahan tree stopper, and he did nothing to dispel that reputation about him as he took care of yet another Shanahan disciple in Bobby Slowick. So, answers for basically everything that Slowick does in this one. Defensively, didn't heat up Sam Darnold enough. When the four guys aren't getting home on the defensive line, you might have to just blitz a guy like Darnold every now and then. Ultimately, some of the coverage stuff I didn't love, a lot of off coverage, just hoping that, hey, maybe they take the bait, run some deeper routes, the defensive line gets home. That didn't work out in this one. They played off of Justin Jefferson. He was able to get a couple of key first downs, keep things on time, and keep the train on the tracks for the Minnesota Vikings. If Derek Stingley's really good, let him man up Justin Jefferson when they're on the same side. Let him go one-on-one right there at the line of scrimmage and see if he can hold his own. And if Justin Jefferson beats you, tip your cap, you move on down the road or try something else, but just didn't love the approach to Justin Jefferson. It's not like he killed you today. Jefferson, what were his actual stats here in this one? 6 for 81 and a touchdown. You should be able to survive that. I would have signed up for 6 for 81 and a touchdown from Justin Jefferson before this game started. For him to have that line and the Vikings to just absolutely dominate that way, I mean, it's just a bad performance all around. Pre-snap penalties, focus, concentration, that stuff that has to get cleaned up. And a big coaching blunder, mistake, annoyance was after they score. The Texans score. They turn this thing into 21-7. And then the Texans try to do a kickoff where they're going to try to pin Minnesota deep and play, run a special teams play essentially. And they try to get deep on this, and Kaimi Fairbairn ends up kicking it out of bounds. That was awful. That took so much momentum and juice away from the success that they did have on that drive when they were able to go down there and score. It basically required you to play perfect football from that moment on. Because at 21-7, Minnesota has not put together, without your help, big drives down the field at this point. They've got one big drive at this point in the game. It's 21-7. They're getting the ball back. And then you hand them the ball at the 40-yard line. Hand them the ball at the 40-yard line where they just have a couple of plays that they need to go through to find themselves in field goal range. Like, they were not sustaining drives on this Texans defense after that second touchdown drive. So to give them that the ball at the 40 and they are able to put this thing into a 3-score territory with a field goal, that was a very annoying aspect of the game. And is that a coaching decision? Did Kaimi just blow it? Kaimi also missed a field goal. Like, there was just a lot that went wrong for this team, and they have got so much to clean up. The hope here is that these mistakes, making your own mistakes, you clean some of those up, and then some of the talent shines through. The scary thing would be if we look back in 6 weeks and we find out this is a talent issue. They don't have enough here or there on this team. I don't believe that to be the case, but if they don't play up to the talent, they're going to get smoked and beat up like this time and time again. Okay, let's do this here. If you want to get in live, audio or video, you can do so with this link. So I think that link will show up, work just fine. So you can get in with that link right there. And that's how you get in live audio or video. Super chats go to the front of the line. Okay. The super chats will go to the front of the line. If you want to chat, answer your question first, that's how we'll do that. Let's get to some of your comments here. After we talk, I knew this guy was waiting. He hit the button as soon as it popped up. T-Man, what do you got for me, man?
I'm very unhappy. Very unhappy.
Oh, shocker. I didn't expect you to be thrilled after this one.
Yeah, no. I just got to say, like, there was one drive. So I don't know when it was, but either way, we like the fact that we even ran the ball down 2 scores when we couldn't run all day. It's like, just have CJ just throw 20-yard bombs all day. What do you have to lose? You're down 2 scores. Just have him throw the ball down the field. He throws an interception. Who cares? You need chunk plays to get down the field because you don't have time, and the run game's not working. So we just kept running it with Akers for 2 yards, and then it's 3rd and 6. Then you get a false start, and then it's 3rd and 11, and it's like they call a blitz, and it's just like it's like you have one of the best arms in the league. Use him, and you have some of the best talent in the league around him. Use it. Like have Nico just say run. Just run. Nico and Tank just run down the field and see to just throw it up there and see what happens because you have nothing to lose at that point.
Yeah, it was not a well executed game plan. It was not a good call. I mean, just a lot of issues on this one, and it just felt like in the first game against the Colts, stuff didn't fold in on itself. They made a mistake. They bounced back from it. On this one, they just made mistake after mistake after mistake. It just kind of built on itself, and then they couldn't pull themselves out of it.
Yeah, no, it was really bad. And like you were saying earlier, it's like I think it was like the Vikings' first drive. You got pressure on Darnold, and he did that stupid where he tried to like pitch it back as he's like getting hit. It's like that's what happens when you put pressure on Sam Darnold. Like Sam Darnold is not as good as he's playing right now. No. It's just he's got a good O-line and he's got the best receiver in the league. Like any quarterback is going to be good in that situation. Like if you heat him up, he will get happy feet and he will start throwing, like silly passes, dumb passes.
Even the touchdown play to Jefferson, you get the 4-man rush, guy doesn't fill the gap, and he escapes. And then at that point, you're trying to cover Justin Jefferson for 7-8 seconds. Like, you're not going to cover him. Like, Eric Murray had him covered initially, like as the play was operated. And then when the play gets extended, okay, well, it's hard to cover Justin Jefferson. We see it every week with Nico Collins. It's hard to cover Nico Collins. Jefferson's better than Collins. Hard to cover him for longer than a few moments. So it's just real bad stuff.
Yeah, and like I don't know, there's been a lot of worrying signs in the last like 3 weeks. Like just like even against the Colts, like we completely dominated. Like we had 40 minutes of possession. We had like over 100 more yards than them, and yet it was a 2-point game, right? It was like by the stats, we should have beaten them by 2+ scores. Against Chicago, we let Chicago hang in there, and luckily, Caleb Williams isn't, he's not playing good right now, so we escaped with that one. But even then, that game should have been out of reach. And then today, I kind of saw us losing. Like I didn't think we'd win, but I wanted to see a good fight. But like this was coming. Like I feel like this was definitely something that like we're not playing good right now. And if Kaimi missed a couple field goals in the first 2 weeks, we could easily be 0-3.
Yeah, look, this is so. The scary part about the Vikings game is not necessarily how you feel now; it's how you might feel in a few weeks. Like it might confirm things about this team that you're worried are present. Maybe they can't stop pass rushers. Maybe they can't run the football. Maybe they can't pressure any quarterback with, a little bit of experience. Like that's the scary part about this game is some of these things could be issues on a weekly basis, and you don't totally know if they're an issue on a weekly basis just yet, but you got kind of that funny pit in your stomach that you're kind of like, oh, crap, if this shows up again or constantly, this team's not going to have any chance to go where they want to go.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, I hate, like, blaming referees because they're not the reason we lost that game at all. Like, Tunsil needs to he needs to play up to his contract. But that, like, am I the only one who thought that roughing the passer call? Like, Daniil got pushed.
That was soft.
Like, he got pushed down, and as he's falling, he falls into the feet of Darnold. Like, what's he supposed to do? He's not going for Darnold's feet. That was a huge play because I think it was 3rd and long. Darnold threw the ball away. If that didn't happen, Vikings likely punt, and it's 21-7. And at that point, it's like maybe the offense gets something going there, right? But, like, I just thought, like, yeah, I get it's the rule, but, like, he got pushed from behind, and he's falling, and then he just happens to fall into Darnold's feet. And it's like, I don't understand. And then, yeah, like you said, that pass interference call, it's like he's putting his hands on his back. He's not preventing him from getting the catch. Like, the guy was fully stretched, and the ball was overthrown. It's like, and that was another back-breaking play because that put them right at the 1 yard line. And it's like, if we would have gotten a stop there, maybe we settle for a field goal right out of halftime, and then we go again.
Yeah, I mean, if you could keep them to, if it's 14, or excuse me, if it's 17-7, at some point it's a 21-7, like, you give yourself a little bit of play there. But I mean, the pass interference penalty, that was weak. I mean, it puts them in a good position. Like, is bad. It's bad performance. And I think the motto around the building is going to be like, flush it and move on. Like, the scary part is like, there's a couple of things here, protecting CJ and the pass blocking, probably chief among them. It's a couple of things that have been here for a couple of weeks now. They're like, okay, I don't know if you can flush this and move on.
Yeah, and I think, like, Bobby Slowick has to improve, man. Like, that guy's got way too much weapons for the play calling we're doing. Like, I thought we were done doing this run stuff. Yeah, you had a good rushing attack against the Colts, but the Colts gave up over 200 yards on the ground to the Packers, so that's just a really bad run defense. And plus, you didn't have Joe Mixon. Like just get creative and get, like, I can count on one hand how many deep balls we've had this year. Like, the one I remember is Nico against the Colts. We've had a couple, like, CJ had a good one to Nico, but, like, what happened to, like, using CJ's arm? Like, just have him just chuck it down there. Like, who cares if it's picked off? Like,
I mean, once it gets, like, I think when you have some issues running the ball, like you're saying, and then, like, it's like, you almost have a frustration throw. Like, Stroud had one of those. It was the second interception. Like, that was like a frustration throw. That was like, screw it, I'm throwing this ball, and, like, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
I don't know if the game felt close enough that you don't necessarily want to put one of those frustration throws on the box score. Like, 14-0, at any point, if you make it 14-7, you are right there. Even at 21-7, you might need a little bit of help. Like, you might need a turnover or a Minnesota mistake, but you're right there. So, like, I don't totally disagree with you, but, like, we've had this this has been like the conversation of the NFL for, like, the past week. Teams just dump their safeties back there, and they basically say, throw the ball in front of us, or run the football. And the Texans can't run the football. And you saw some success over the middle. They got it to Stefon Diggs a couple of times over the middle. Like, they couldn't. I mean, CJ probably had some moments where he could have, but then he's got Jonathan Grenard breathing down his neck. And so it's like, you know, even the one play, like, they were on the one play, and the fat guy on Minnesota's, like, immediately in the backfield. Even on the screens and the quick stuff, guys are immediately on CJ. Like, there's got to be some, like, they felt ready for everything the Texans could show. And I feel like that's probably the scary part. Is like, is the book out? Because if the book's out, you're going to have to start from square one and kind of figure out how to make sure people don't have you kind of squared away.
Yeah, and I'll say one positive I guess you could take from this is we did have some positive plays. They were just taken away from penalties. Like, there were times where it was like 3rd and 11, and you connected with Diggs for, like, a good 15-yard throw, and it's a false start. Oh, you throw it to Tank Dell for a 10-yard gain, and you get a first down.
Yeah,
and Dell it's an illegal motion. Oh, you throw it to this guy for first down, and it's a false start. It's like, so we did move the ball at some points. It's just when you get into, like, 3rd and 19 on the road, you're like teams are just going to play 10 yards off you, let you throw a little 3-yard dinker, and then everybody will just swarm to the ball. So it was, it was just an ugly game. And hopefully this is just like okay, let's get back to this. It was like kind of like last season when played against Carolina. They're winless, completely ugly game. Come out, I believe the next week was when CJ threw for 480 yards and 5 touchdowns against the Buccaneers, right?
Yep, Tampa.
So let's see that. Let's see the hungry Texans be like, okay, we're playing a division rival. Let's put the Jags out of sight, because I think the Jags will lose to the Bills tomorrow. Make the Jags 0-4. You're 3-1. They're not catching you. So,
Team, man, I appreciate you hopping in, and wish we had a better one to talk about. But hey, the valleys make us appreciate the peaks.
Yep. Thanks, Stoots.
See you, man. Good stuff from Team. And you want to get in like you can, the link at the top of the description is there. Let's get to some of your comments, some of the stuff that jumped off the page or stood out. Captain Insano, it felt like the Panthers and Jets game from last year. Just no momentum. They got outcoached and outplayed. Yeah, the Jets one's different because you don't have Tank. That's the first game without Tank after the injury. And Nico went out on the very first play. So you were outgunned in that one from that standpoint. So but the Panthers game where you just kind of can't explain why it didn't work. And like there's just like small things that get in the way. It felt a little bit like that with the Minnesota one. It felt a little bit like that. Try to get to some of your comments here. Beast mode loading. The thing is, we have no idea how good we really are because of all the penalties. Yeah, the ceiling certainly feels like it's hard to gauge because they do make so many mistakes and they do take things away. I mean, we talked about the illegal formations. You had a 16-yard pass to Xavier Hutchinson wiped away, and you had a 17-yard pass to Tank Dell wiped away from those. So it's a bad job on those. I mean, both of those come in, or let me see here. The Tank Dell one comes on 3rd and 10, right before the 2-minute warning, and you end up having to punt on that drive. And then the other one came on 3rd and 7, and you end up having to punt on that drive. So, and that was when it was 14-0, like coming out of the score from Minnesota, you go right over the middle to Xavier Hutchinson, but the illegal formation wipes it off the board. Like, that can't happen. Can't happen. Keep getting those comments in. We'll get to them. You want to jump in on video or audio? Like our guy Chris, what do you got for us, Chris? Fire away.
Hey, Cody. First time jumping in. Talked to you a lot actually on your channel. I appreciate all the hard work you do for all of us. For
Thank
one,
you, man.
and I'm not sure if I'm sick because I drank too much Natty Light or because of the offense. But that was miserable and abysmal today. Is what that felt like. Honestly, I realize Brian Flores is who he is, but dude, today, they talked about how they didn't want to be grouped in with, the Shanahan offense and so on and so forth, but they played like a Shanahan offense, and I feel like they got just out schemed just all day because, I realize last year, man, that looked like a high flying offense, and now we have the weapons for it, and they just didn't let it go today. So.
Yeah, it did not feel like they really let it fly. And when they did,
they got taken away.
They got taken away,
So.
and I think some of that too. Like, look, they've got Diggs and they've got Nico and they've got Tank Dell and Schultz is a nice tight end. That's all very hard to execute when CJ is having to scramble, when stuff's not on time. Like CJ talked about it. I think it was last week. It might have been the week before. Like, he doesn't want to extend plays. Like, he doesn't want to have to roll out and try to make something happen. Like, he wants the play that they call to get run, everything be on time. And they did not allow that to happen because they couldn't pass block for CJ today. So that I think really limits the ability of this offense to showcase the weapons, to get Diggs going, to get Collins going, to get Dell going, and just so like disjointed is sort of the way I would describe this offense through 3 weeks, especially the passing portion. Obviously, week 1 on the ground was great, but disjointed is what I would say for the passing. Like, it just doesn't feel like remember sometimes last year where CJ would be like, it'd be boom, boom, then there's a run play, and then it's boom, 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 just like matriculating down the field. Like, it doesn't feel like they're capable of that right now because they can't pass block well.
It honestly, it felt worse than watching that Jets game last year. Is what it like.
Well,
I don't know.
you had some easy excuses built in for the Jets game. You had a bunch of guys missing. Nico goes out.
It was wet and raining.
It was wet, rainy. The field sucks. So like perfect conditions in Minnesota. Like nothing. I mean, it's perfect in Minnesota. And like the Vikings had a worse injury situation than you did. Like, yeah, Joe Mixon's out and Dameon Pierce is out. They're missing their first round pass rusher in Dallas Turner. They're missing their second leading tackler in Ivan Pace, and they're missing their number 2 wide receiver. And they crushed you, missing all of those players. Like
absolutely outcoached all day in every way.
Yeah, how bad would it have been? Like the backups were ready. The backups and the starters were not ready for the Texans. And part of that's coaching. What else you got for us, Chris?
No, that's it, man. I appreciate your time, Cody. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for the kind words, and appreciate you supporting the channel. Appreciate everybody jumping in, talking a little Texans here. Not a fun one to talk about, but like I told Teeman, you got the valleys to appreciate how high those peaks are. Ronald simply says Tunsil's the problem on the offense. He's not helping. Like it's not going to the level of like, hey, we pay him this money because of this. Like it's not there for Laremy Tunsil. He's not bringing that level of production. I don't want to pocket watch a guy, but third most expensive left tackle in football. It's got to be better. It's got to be better. Lucid Illusions with the super chat. He jumps to the front of the line. This team is a good team. I feel like we will get it together. It took this team until week 4 last year to get everything rolling the right way. I agree with you. The scary part is if you look up in 4 weeks and they've done a lot of the same things and they've played some close games against some teams that, look, it's the NFL and everybody's as good as, their record says they are in any given Sunday and all that jazz. But the early part of the season is when you were supposed to really get things kicked off. Like 1-2 losses in the first 7 or 8 games is kind of where you needed to be, because then that schedule gets really hard. I mean, you're 2-1. You got the Jacksonville Jaguars coming to town next week, followed by the Bills the week after that. Like, that's 2 tough games. I know the Jaguars are 0-2, probably going to be 0-3 coming off of a game with those Bills, but that's a divisional opponent. And if you can't pass block, Josh Allen and Trevon Walker and some of the stuff that they may dial up, it's going to get to you. It's going to get to you, and you're going to have a rough day, and you're going to have a long day. And so that will be really difficult to deal with if you're the Texans. And then, oh, by the way, the Bills come to town. If Darnold can have that day and you're not going to put pressure on him, what's Josh Allen going to do? So this early part of the schedule is really important, because then it sets up as a really tough portion of the schedule. Like, you got to showcase that you're a good team here in the next couple of weeks if you are indeed a good team. Appreciate the super chat there, Lucid. Capsize says that whole line needs to go, Cody. Not even kidding. Pathetic performance. That's who they wanted, so they've got to do whatever they can to figure out why it's not working, why they've only been able to run block for 4 quarters out of 12, why they haven't been able to consistently pass block. They got to figure it out. Zach's putting the heat on Bobby Slowick on this one. Slowick needs to explain some things. I mean, look, if I was Bobby Slowick, some of my explanations would be, I can't pass block for these guys. But yeah, there's some timing stuff of when they go to the run and when they decide to throw the ball and some of the plays and how long it takes them to develop, and some of the defenses that they see. Like, there's some, like, when you have the talent that this offense has, the offensive coordinator is going to come under fire when it doesn't perform. And he should. That's an element of the position. Yo-Yo says, I'd like to give it 4 weeks and see what we have. It's getting hard to take up for LT. Do we think you have someone to replace him next season? And if it does not get better? I mean, here's the tough part with Laremy Tunsil. It is nearly financially impossible to trade him. I mean, it's not impossible. Nothing's impossible. You can trade all sorts of stuff, but they just extended him. They just extended him last year. And I mean, you're looking at a $25 million dead cap if you trade him next year. Like, That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And you only save $3 million. His cap hit's 28. The dead cap's 25 if you cut him. It's like you only save $3 million. Could you trade him and get something nice? Some other team wants him. I suppose. Who's the left tackle then? Is it going to be Blake Fisher? Are you going to move Titus over there? Titus hadn't played well. Like it's a really rough spot to be in for this Texans team. You paid this offensive line. You paid Titus Howard. You paid Laremy Tunsil. You paid Shaq Mason. You drafted Kenyon Green and Juice Scruggs. It's supposed to look better. It's supposed to be better, and it's not. It's not. Yeah, look, I mean, this is the old baseball thing. When the baseball team's not hitting, fire the hitting coach. When the offensive line's not pass blocking, hey, what's going on with the offensive line coach? You assess everything. You look at everything when you're the Texans, and it goes as bad as it did today. And you've got signs over 3 games. I know you're 2-1, but it hadn't felt great in that 2-1. You don't apologize for wins, but any player performances you like? No, not really. I mean, no. I mean, Diggs had a nice day. Like Nico had a nice day. Like for what the situation was, but not really. I don't think it's this bad, engineer, but I do think when stuff starts going bad, it's very hard for Slowick to pull out of the nosedive. It is very hard to dodge obstacles for Bobby Slowick. The adjustment, the change, it's difficult sometimes for him. I don't think he's in no idea what he's doing territory, but it hadn't been smooth. And some of it's his fault, some of it's not his fault. Patrick says, I was ready to accept CJ Stroud would have a sophomore slump with all the tape on him, but I figured development investment around him would offset it. Too early to write off, but man. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would put damn near none of this on CJ. I mean, he threw the interception late, but you're basically out of it by then. But I'm not putting any of this on CJ, and I don't think that it's necessarily film on CJ as much as teams are ready for what the Texans like to do. They're missing their star running back, and then the offensive line played poorly, and it just didn't. It nothing clicked. Nothing clicked, and you couldn't build and stack in this one. Why does this team rarely do any wide receiver screens? The plays take too long to develop. I mean, they ran some of them, and CJ nearly got killed on a couple of them. They ran that one to Tank down the sideline, and he maneuvered down the sideline. I mean, they run some sideways stuff. The sideways and short stuff, like I don't love it. There's room for it, obviously. There's the usefulness to it. I think defenses have adjusted to CJ a little bit and more prepared for him this year. I think defenses have adjusted to the way NFL quarterbacks play. I think defenses have adjusted to pass first offenses, and they want them to run the football more, and teams aren't doing it. They're not taking advantage of the opportunities to run the football. The Texans couldn't today. They couldn't run block. They couldn't pass block. How long will Mixon be out? Well, he got to the doubtful designation this week, so maybe questionable next week with a chance to play, and then maybe back the following week. I would tell you that not being the flat out ruled out on Friday, you hope it's close, but if he misses another game, it's not going to surprise me. It's not going to shock me. Yeah, they ran the funky Diggs play. Yeah, they did that. Was there more than we thought to the Blake Fisher pick? I mean, yeah. I mean, long term, they needed a new tackle. And they needed a swing tackle. And I mean, if either of these guys at the tackle spot get hurt, you're going to see Fisher. They're not benching Laremy Tunsil or Titus Howard, though. Like I think we've got to be very understanding of that fact of the matter. Like they're not going to bench those guys. They're not going to sit down a guy they're paying $1 gazillion to in Laremy Tunsil, and they're not going to sit down Titus Howard. So if you want to see Blake Fisher, one of those guys has to not be available. Beast Mode Loading says, hey, you've got to hold those offensive linemen accountable. Absolutely. That's on D'Amico Ryans. That's on Chris Strausser, the offensive line coach. That's on Bobby Slowick. That's on CJ Stroud, who's a captain. That's on Laremy Tunsil, who's the dude on the offensive line. You know, you got to be better. You got to be better. Knuckle Earth says, Vikings had our playbooks. They got a huge advantage getting so many of our previous players. I mean, the Texans got a Vikings player. How good? What use was it to them? You know, what use was it to them? The Texans have Danielle Hunter. I don't think it was like the playbook. Those guys played well. Cashman was fine. Grenard was awesome. Those guys played well. Camus Grugier Hill, didn't like that guy when he was here, and see him have the plays he made. That was annoying. The O-line is the problem, not CJ, not the play calling. If we could run pass block, we'd be scoring 30 points a game. Well, we may never find out if it's that simple because this offensive line may not be capable of greatness. Lucid Illusions. This whole season's been weird for a lot of teams. They'll look at the Panthers doing without Bryce, the Broncos beating the Bucks, Cowboys are spiraling, just weird all around so far. Yeah, the NFL has 2 seasons. You got the first 6 weeks where everybody kind of figures out who they are, and then you got everything after that. And then it's surviving injuries and things like that. So, I mean, the team you saw today is not who the Houston Texans are. The team that you saw week 1 against the Colts is not who the Houston Texans are. But in 3 or 4 weeks, we may see too many of these negative signs and be like, okay, that is who the Texans are. That is who they are. Oh, they can't pass block. Oh, they can't run block. Like, you know, there's some issues there. Like, that's the scary part, is if the issues hang around. Mellow Mike says they need a veteran center, move Scruggs to one of the guard spots, clean up the interior line calls. Too many missed assignments. I mean, how, you know, maybe they don't have there's nobody they can go find. So, you know, the backups are rookie, or the backups was a rookie last year, just like Scruggs was, so second-year player. The backup's a second-year player. The third-string guy's a veteran that hadn't played a lot of center and gets hurt. And then the guy on the practice squad just got healthy a couple weeks ago. So your center change is not happening. I know they won't sit the line, but I literally believe they should, Cody. Even if it's for one game, they need to be held accountable, not just for performance, especially discipline. I mean, they also have to have the opportunity to get better. Like, if you come out here and you stink the joint up against the Jaguars next week, maybe we're having this conversation. But, you know, Brian Flores was not there last year. Yeah, but Danielle Hunter was, and you'd think he'd know something about the offense. And you'd have some tips and tricks to unlock against the offense. That's where they're the defenders that's what we're talking about here, is a defender knowing about the offense. Dime with the super chat. How much can we blame the place and the crowd noise? How much blame can we place on the crowd noise? Some. You know, probably 1 or 2 of those false starts. I'll give you the crowd noise on that one. Well, you play in loud places. You play on the road. Figure it out. Figure it out. Dime, I appreciate the super chat, man. I'll give you one. I'm not going to give you a bunch. They got to be better team in almost every aspect. They did nothing to help themselves. They just need to try and learn and move on. That's what will be interesting to find out in the next couple of weeks is Minnesota actually really, really good? Like, if they're one of the best teams in the NFC when this is all said and done, this loss is going to look a lot different. Minnesota's not supposed to be this. Sam Darnold's not supposed to be the type of guy that can throw 4 touchdowns against you. So if we look up in 3-4 weeks and the Texans are a much better team and Minnesota's also really good, then you'd be like, oh, okay, like you had an off day against a really good team. Now you look up in 3 weeks, Texans are good, Minnesota's, lost a few. It's like, what happened here? Like, how, like, you just have a hiccup? Like, you're going to have a hiccup game. You're not going 17-0. It shouldn't, hopefully the hiccups don't look like this, and you hopefully don't have them that often. Highs and lows. This was a huge low, unfortunately, no doubt. How do you get better when Laremy Tunsil tells Aaron Wilson it's basically not his fault? Well, whatever he says publicly is what he's got to stand on, and then whatever the coach and the team decide behind the scenes is what they've got to stand on. Like, if he cleans it up and he cleans up the penalties going forward and the offensive line, my issue with Tunsil's conversation, what he said, and if you missed this, I want to read it for you. On the illegal formation calls, Laremy Tunsil told Aaron Wilson that he felt like the league targeted them and there were no problems the first couple of weeks. And on false starts, he said, I want people to understand we all have to be the same communication. I'll take accountability because they were calling my name, but it takes all of us. Now, that was after D'Amico Ryans in his post-game press conference said, we have to take ownership of it, talking about the pre-snap penalties. First and foremost, have to take ownership of it. We all have to man up and be man enough to do just what we're supposed to do, be where we're supposed to be, and play smart, clean football. So Tunsil said that after D'Amico Ryans had said that. So Laremy Tunsil, my thing would be is you're the leader of the offensive line. If everybody's supposed to be on the same page, it's your job to put everybody on the same page. That's your job. That would be my conversation point about Tunsil. Jags game all of a sudden is a big game. Yeah. And especially if they're 0-3 and you could end their season, that'd be a big one. It sucks now, but in the end, you need someone to block elite edge rushers, and Tunsil is still on that list. He needs to clean it up. Yeah. I mean, it's not like Grenard went out there and was attacking Laremy Tunsil and had those moments. I mean, Grenard, beat up Cade Stover. He cut through on Shaq Mason. Like, it's not like it's not like Grenard was out there kicking Tunsil's butt. In addition to that, but the penalties, they stick out like a sore thumb. Can you explain how our mishmash of injured O-line players last year had better pass pro? I can't. I mean, remember the first 2 weeks, absolutely demolished. CJ was getting sacked like nonstop, and then boom, turned the corner. Week 3, right there, pass blocking good. Week 4, pass blocking good. Got to find that same secret sauce from last year. Stroud doesn't look the same this year. Why? Because he's running for his life. Worst part about the last 2 weeks of offense, penalties feel like every time I got some momentum, it's false starts, illegal motion, 3 flags in a row today, really bad. Yeah, or a negative play, or somebody misses a block and a first down rush nets you 1 yard instead of 4 yards. Like so many just, it's not even shoot yourself in the foot. It's blow off your lower leg. That's what's happening. That's the unfortunate part about it. Gilly's not, he said he won't clean it up. It's been a problem for years. It's who he is. Well, then that's something the Texans will have to work around. And Blackman says Tunsil's okay at pass blocking, bad at run blocking, penalty magnet, and he's not worth the money. A lot of people pocket watching saying he's not. And the performance hasn't been there through the first few weeks. Engineer says they're holding Stroud back. Yeah, he made a couple of really nice throws. He was low on some stuff. But again, the pass rush that he had to deal with, the pressure he had to deal with, that's going to be a pretty good excuse there for CJ. Any update on Tank? Hurt late in the game. Just tuned in. Not sure if you answered this yet. Haven't seen anything or heard anything on Tank yet. Yeah, Patterson was a part of that group when they looked okay, and then he played poorly last week. Yeah, it's they got to do some soul searching, that's for sure. Man, the Cowboys stink. Wish we had the Colts O-line. Yeah, some days I feel the same way. Well, that's a terrible ball. That's got to be caught, though. Why are the wide receivers still in the game? You have Mills out there. Well, you only have. You want to just put Robert Woods, Xavier Hutchinson, and Steven Sims out there? I guess you can. Those guys want to get reps. So they got to rep the offense. It's got to look right. I don't know. I can't really explain it. I can't totally explain that. So you got Tank hurt. Yeah, football players play football though. So that's what you have the guys out there for. Stroud took a big hit, so maybe take him out because he's a quarterback. But should you have had all the other wide receivers in there instead of those guys? Sure. It's probably the right way to go. But football players play football. This was very annoying, Mr. Heisenberg. Glad you brought this up. We talked about it a little bit earlier on. But you come off the score, and Fairbairn kicks it out of bounds on what looked like they tried to put it over there, like they tried to run a play. That was very annoying and tough to see, and took a little bit of momentum and juice out of just scoring. I didn't like that. Didn't like that. Your defense at that point, your defense had allowed one Vikings only drive. And I would say Vikings only drive without massive assistance from the Texans. So first touchdown, massive assistance. The interception sets them up in a good spot. The score to go up 21, massive assistance from the Texans, pass interference. The Vikings had one non-assisted touchdown drive. They're not putting together long drives. Pin them deep, play defense. I understand you just gave up a touchdown, but pin them deep, play defense, and give yourself a chance to rack something up. I hated this. It looks like they ran a play, and it didn't go their way. Fairbairn, bad day. AFC Special Teams Player of the Week, bad day this week. I want to see a bounce-back game next week. You very well may get that. It's worth noting the San Francisco 49ers, who a week ago got smoked for a good portion of the game. Now, they played a lot closer game than the Texans did, but 49ers lost to the Vikings last week. They're up 24-14 over the Rams this week. Now, that's a beat-up Rams team that basically has nobody available. But Purdy looks good, 3 touchdowns, 222 yards passing. They're running the ball okay. It's a bounce back for the 49ers after this one. So you feel like they'll clean up the majority of the miscues to get going for the tougher part of the schedule when they play Baltimore, KC, and Detroit? Buddy, every part of the schedule is going to be tough if they don't clean this crap up. The entire schedule is going to be tough if they don't clean this up. Every part of the schedule will be looking like it's a tough one if they don't clean it. But yeah, they got to. Do I believe they can? Yes. I believe the potential for the Texans has not been seen yet. I do not believe they have played up to their potential yet on offense or defense. I don't believe they've played up to their potential. So can they fix this? I believe they can. If they don't, every week's going to be extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. Nearly impossible to make it through the season playing like this every week. They won't. So, all right. That'll wrap it up here for the live. We got the short form one, 10 or 12 minutes. We got the live. If you want to do the whole, watch this back, you're just checking it in, or you missed some stuff early on. We got a couple different ways for you to consume this. 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, S&L, Landry Locker from the locker room, myself, 2 hours, Reaction Monday, anything and everything, the back and forth, your comments and questions as well. Reaction Monday, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Don't miss out on that. Subscribe to the channel. Throw me a thumbs up on the video. Appreciate everybody watching. I know this one stinks, but we're going to talk about some more fun ones over the course of this season. And there's going to be some stinkers that we'll talk about, but we're always going to be here talking Texans for you here on the channel. We end the live streams the same way each and every time. This is my hope for you. This is my charge for you as well. I want you to eat good. I want you to sleep good. I want you to be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.